Welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I have Jennifer Trask from Jennifer Trask International with me. Hi, Jennifer. How's it going?
Hi, Jen. Woohoo! So good.
I'm not going to forget your name, that's for sure.
I know.
So, Jennifer, you are in Nova Scotia, is that right?
No, I'm in Newfoundland.
Newfoundland. Okay, I apologize.
So
We were
close.
talking, right before I hit record, we were talking about the time change because we recently went through daylight savings, which Arizona does not do. And you were telling me how you are a half hour different. And I was just trying to puzzle through how that works. So Newfoundland is it a half hour earlier than Eastern time?
No, it's an hour and a half ahead of Eastern
An hour
time.
and a half ahead of Eastern time. Okay.
We're
All right.
special. We have our own time zone over here.
Yeah, your own time zone. I learn something new all the time. That's really interesting. Okay, and we were just kind of discussing what we were going to talk about, and I think we have some really exciting things to go through here. And one thing I'm most excited about is that you have been an entrepreneur for 9 years, right?
Yeah, well, next year it'll be 9 years. I can't believe it. Time flies.
That is great. And I think we have a lot of things to talk through there because a lot of people that I have on the show or the things that we talk about are for pretty brand new entrepreneurs. So having someone who's been doing this for a significant amount of time, you can kind of see over the long run how things have worked for you. But I'd like to first tackle, how did you get into entrepreneurship and what were you doing before?
I grew up in an entrepreneurial household.
Okay.
So I have 3 siblings and the 4 of us all did business in our undergrads. And so when, then after university, I went to Australia for a year and traveled and just had fun. And I worked in a family business for a bit. And then I went to Calgary, which is in the west coast of Canada. And I was working in corporate. And after 6 months, I was like, OMG, like this is not for me. And the biggest reason was because I went to head office. I worked for a large cosmetics company and I was in head office in Montreal. And I said to them, I was a sales rep at the time. And I said, what would it take for me to get into marketing for one of the brands? They have like 30, 40 brands or something. And my boss at the time said, well, you have to do your year in sales and on the ground, and then you have to go here, and then you have to go here. And anyways, it was like this 5-year journey of doing jobs I didn't want to do, to get into a job I didn't even know that I would like. And I'd have to live in a city that I didn't want to live in. I don't speak French, and I also knew no one in Montreal, didn't really have an interest in the city. So I was like, this just doesn't sound like a very good deal to me. So I ended up going back to MBA school to study international business because I always had a love of travel. And I kind of wanted to buy time because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And the best thing that happened to me in MBA school was I went into the mentorship program. And this mentor said to me, she introduced me to a few different people and concepts. And she said, you should go to this conference that's coming into town. And I said, okay, I'd never really been to any of these business or self-help conferences before. And I went, and there was 6 speakers that day. And at the last speaker of the day I had heard of, and I was kind of looking forward to seeing him. I wasn't super familiar with his work, but I was like, well, I think he might be pretty good. Anyways, he comes out and the whole place goes wild, and I'm like, woo! And in that moment, it was one of those, when I'm 95 in my rocking chair, I will tell my great-grandchildren, that's when I knew what I was put on the planet for. And the speaker was Tony Robbins.
That's what I was wondering if you're going to say when everyone went, woo!
Yeah, it was Tony Robbins. And what happened in that moment for me was I was just so enamored that one person could have so much positive influence over so many people and get them dancing up and down excited about just living their best life. And to me, that was is there anything better than that? I just don't think so. And so that is the moment where my life changed. And from there, after university, after the MBA, I got into the network marketing industry, and that began my entrepreneurial journey. And it has been quite the journey. I've had 3 businesses before the one that I have now, and they were all evolutions built on each other. And that's kind of how it happened.
That's interesting. I didn't know that you did network marketing before, but I do feel like that is an entry point, particularly for a lot of women. When you're at home, particularly if you've taken time off of your career for kids or for caregiving of some kind, this entry point of there being a product already.
Yes.
I know a lot of people are really down on, multi-level marketing and network marketing and stuff, but I feel like it gives people something to start with for a lot of people.
And I got to tell you, Jen, big love to the network marketing industry, because I learned so much being in that industry. It gave me the foundation that I needed to move into. I moved into consulting and then coaching eventually. And I have nothing but great memories and met great people. And it's an easy entry business model because of the price point and the support you get. And, while there are some people who market it in a way that I don't agree with, the model itself is awesome. And I remember the reason I got into it is as I was like, oh, the only way I get ahead is to help others. That just makes sense to me. Right? But nothing but respect for network marketing and the industry. And it taught me a lot. And it was a great start.
Mm-hmm. And I think it also helps people see, okay, if I can do this with their product, eventually, once you get the confidence to either get your own product or your own services that you're going to offer to people, at least you've learned some of how to communicate about it, how to market it, how to get it out into the world in some way beyond just telling your mom and your sister,
That's right. I'm really good. Buy my stuff.
Yeah. So if you don't have a service or a product yet of your own that you're confident with, at least you can start with something and be like, oh, I've tried this product. I used it myself. I like it. Let me start sharing it with people. Right. I mean, that's from some of the other people I've talked to. It seems like that was what gave them the confidence to then go out on their own eventually.
Right. I can see that. Yeah.
So when you first went out on your own, it was consulting. Were you doing business consulting or marketing, or what was your
social media? See, because I was learning social media to try to grow my network marketing business.
Right.
And I was networking. I was being a very good networker. Now this is also, people come naturally to me. I'm not shy. I like people. I like networking. I'm one of those few people who actually like networking and speaking in public. Mm-hmm. So, for me, I had all these entrepreneur friends. I'm like, how are you doing this on Facebook? And what about that? And this is before Facebook this is before Facebook ads. This is before it was sort of the big space online for entrepreneurs. And I was like, oh, sure, I'll show you. Anyways, and so I started doing workshops, which led into getting consulting clients, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just before we started, but just before I hit record today too, we were kind of talking about all the travel that being an entrepreneur has allowed you to do. So we started out with the network marketing. Was that a few years before you started consulting?
Yeah, it was 2 years. I did 2 years of network marketing.
Okay. And then how long did you do consulting before you moved on to what you do now?
2 years. So social media marketing consulting quickly turned into marketing consulting, because I would say to people, well, do you have a marketing plan? Do you have a vision and missions? Do you have this? Do you have that? Because of course I have a business background, and no one had anything. And I was like, people because a social media plan is, a part of a marketing plan. It is not, it's not necessarily the be all end all. And in order for me to create a great a social media plan for people, I needed to understand their business. I needed to understand what their goals were, and their marketing speak, and their brand, and whatever. So that turned into marketing consulting. And then what's really interesting, and what got me into the coaching, was that people were paying me to tell them, to advise them on what to be doing, and they weren't doing it. And I was like, what's going on? I don't understand. And that's where the mindset piece comes in.
I see. And that's what you do now, is that whole package then, right?
Yeah. So what I do now, it's evolved into the biggest piece. The piece I love the most is the mindset piece, and helping people become the leader within them that is necessary to run the companies that they're looking to run, and the strategic direction. So I don't no longer say, click here on Facebook and do that. The greater strategic marketing direction is what I help people with, and a few smaller things here and there in private with private clients, but yeah, it's sort of that the bigger picture, and then okay, so if this is what you want, you're going to implement A, B, C, D, E, and off we go. But the biggest piece is the mindset piece, because I think learning how to market is easier than doing the inner work for most people. So I know it was for me, and so that is where I spend a lot of time in my day-to-day work when I'm in meetings and things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's something that I talk about on my other podcast a lot. All the stuff with Lisa Sharp and Lisa Carpenter is all the things that the three of us work on. And it sounds like some of what you work on as well. People could read a book, and if you were able to just always implement anything that anyone told you or anything you read, you wouldn't need extra help. But
exactly.
With food and exercise, and with clearing clutter, and with setting up finances, and with doing your marketing, there are these reasons why we don't do the exact thing that people tell us to. And also sometimes somebody else's ABCD blueprint plan doesn't fit with our product or ourselves, or especially now that so many people have personal brands, exactly following someone else's blueprint isn't always the right thing for your brand.
No. And that's why what I like about the one-on-one coaching, because it is 100% personalized to my client. And what I always say to people is, play on your strengths. So for example, I have a client who's a fabulous speaker. My God, he's got it. But, and he's a great writer, but it takes him a long time to write. So I said to him, so he wants to do blogs. And I said, okay, great. You know what you're going to do? You're going to video it, and then you're going to have a VA get it on, type it out, because it's a waste of your time to try to write that stuff out. And he's such a great speaker, so he can get it out that way. So it's all about finding out where are your strengths, your talents, and the resources they have. So what are the financial resources you can put into your business to get support? And what are the time resources that you have, and how do we maximize that for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so important. And I think a lot of times it's hard for people to see that themselves sometimes.
Oh yeah.
To write, I could do better by speaking. One thing I found with doing a podcast and sometimes having them transcribed, I used to do solo episodes. Before I had two podcasts, I would do some solo episodes that I would have transcribed. And even though I think it sounds fine when I talk, sometimes I repeat things. Sometimes I go back and make another point. Sometimes the way we speak is not necessarily quite publishable material. So somebody does have, yeah. So someone has to go in and kind of be like, oh, so this train of thought over here, she circled back to it here, but it would make more sense if we put that right there. That's one problem I found with trying to make blog posts out of my transcriptions. But that's kind of beside the point, which is why I've started, rather than doing transcriptions, doing the video and the podcast, and often just having a summary.
Yeah, that's nice.
The spoken word, we are so much more casual with the way we speak than the way we write, and people accept it when it's, especially like this, a conversation between you and I. We've both had moments of kind of saying something over, slipping up, like just there, I slipped up in my speech a little. And it's totally fine when we're talking, but looking at it written is a little different. But
it sure is.
And I also really want to get to the part about your travel, because we were talking about how what are the most important things to you about being an entrepreneur?
So when I was in MBA school, this was after I had my Tony Robbins moment, I suppose. I made a list, and there were 5 things I wanted out of a job. So I hadn't picked entrepreneurship yet. I just was like, I got to make this list. So I made a list. So it was, I wanted to have the ability to make as much money as I wanted. I wanted to have the ability to help lots and lots of people, like that, like thousands. Like even back then I was like, I'm going to help the world. And I think I've always been like that. I wanted the ability to be able to go wherever I wanted to go, because I have a wanderlust that at 30, I'm almost 36 and it has not left me yet. And I wanted to do work that wasn't work. Like I wanted to never work a day in my life, because I wanted to love what I did. There was one more, but it's kind of escaping me. But what they all really encompassed was freedom. So I wanted the freedom to be who I wanted to be, to do work that was important to me and meaningful, to go where I wanted to go, to be on my own schedule, on my own time, and just like make my own decisions. And I really didn't like this idea of someone telling me what to do and where to go and who to be and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
That did not work out for me.
I think that makes sense. I think a lot of entrepreneurs I've talked to have at least some of those in their list.
Yeah. So what was the question? I forget. I lost my train of thought.
Before I hit record, we were talking about some of the travel that you've done
Yes.
in the last few years and kind of the story of what's happened. Between 2013 and 2016, kind of what's been going on with you all this time. And
Right. So this was the interesting thing. So in my business started to turn around in 2012 when I started coaching coaches. And I really feel like, alignment happened for me. I'd learned enough, I'd made mistakes, and I knew who I was and what I was good at. And I started coaching coaches. So then in 2013, it was late 2012. And then in 2013, I was like, oh my God, like this is like really working. And I decided this is great. Like now I can start to travel. And so in 2014, I took my first digital nomad trip and I did 6 months in South America, and it was heavenly and wonderful and very cathartic because in 2013, I had unexpectedly lost my father. It was 11 days to finding out he was sick to him passing away. And my dad was an entrepreneur. We were very, very close. So it was a big blow for our whole family, not just me. I'm very blessed. We come from a very close family, and he was definitely a light at a beacon in the family. So when I first went to Ecuador and sort of plopped myself in this mountain town, and I think did a lot of necessary healing that I just needed that freedom and the space, and of course the energy of the Amazon and the mountains and the shamans around and all that yummy stuff really helped. And then I did another 3 months in Peru that year and went to Machu Picchu, which had been on my vision board for like 5 years. And so that trip was, to me, it was the physical manifestation of you can really live your dream life. Like it was that centered moment of, damn, like I made it. And dreams really do come true. They really do. When it wasn't necessarily like an easy path, but it was worth it. And so the next year I went home, and the next year I went back to South America, but I went to Peru, and then I went down to Chile for a while. And then I ended up in Argentina, and a really interesting thing happened. And that was that, I'm in Buenos Aires, Argentina, which is like the Paris of South America. There's wine and dancing and tango. Like, I mean, it's fabulous. It's a fabulous city. All of South America is fabulous, really. But anyways, and I wasn't really happy. And I was like, what's up? Like,
what's wrong with you?
This is your dream life. Like, dude, get with the program. Like, this is me talking to myself now.
That's like how Tim Ferriss started that one book with him tangoing in Buenos Aires, didn't he?
Yeah, and I couldn't figure it out, and I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm in Buenos Aires and I just want to go home.
Oh no. So what was going on? Yeah. Right?
So this is what happened now. So what I realized was, while I was traveling, I was sort of maintaining my business. It wasn't growing. It was maintaining. And that was
that hard to do in South America? I mean,
yes, it was.
Were you able to like Skype with people or?
Oh no, it wasn't South America that was hard. I found traveling, like to people who travel consistently and run their business, man, that is a serious skill. Like that is serious. Although I think I'd be better at it now because I've learned what to do and what not to do. But it wasn't South America per se. Like South America, like when you're in any of the major cities, and even when I was in that small mountain town, like, well, see, I had 3 criteria of where I stayed: cleanliness, safety, and internet.
Hard to do without any of those as a woman traveling abroad.
As a woman traveler, it was very important to me. So as long as the place met those criteria, and I always found good internet. So that wasn't a problem. But what I realized, what had happened was, so I had grown stagnant. It's almost, you know what I akin it to? I always say business is just like relationships. And I think that any adult who's been around long enough and dating long enough has probably found themselves in one of those relationships where they realize, they're more friends than they are lovers anymore. And you're sort of just in the relationship because it's convenient and but like, it's not what you want anymore, And I think that's what happened to me in my business. So it was maintaining itself, and I was thinking, traveling, this is what I've always wanted, so why don't I keep doing it? But I realized the reason I wanted to go home was because it was time to grow, and it was time to step up to the next level and really step up to, I think, those few years I got the foundation necessary to give me the confidence and the resources and the platform to really elevate my business to where I knew it could go. And I think it was time. And instead of going to it, I was just like, hanging out, tango dancing in Buenos Aires. So,
and maybe everyone needs some travel, adventure, tango dancing time, but maybe after a while it gets old. I don't know.
It wasn't that. I just think, what's interesting? I remember I've heard a lot of people say this, and I say this to my clients all the time. Like, a lot of times people are really like, if I could just make X amount of dollars a year, or if I could just have this, or I could just have that. And it's like, then I'll be. And I feel like it was a really good example of, happiness is not about getting something or reaching a goal. Because to be honest with you, that was a goal I'd reached. So it's like, if it was like stairs, this is a good analogy. So if it was like stairs, and my goal was, I want to get to the 5th stair. The 5th stair was traveling, going around, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, so I got on the stair, but happiness in life doesn't come from staying where you are too long, right? So what I realized was like, I'm not really being challenged anymore. I don't feel like I'm growing. Like, it kind of got boring. And I was thinking I should be having fun because I'm traveling, because this is where the variety and stuff is coming from. But the reality was, there was a calling in me saying, Jennifer, you have more important things to do right now. Right? So it's not that travel is not important to me. It is. In fact, next year I'm going to be spending a large portion of my time in the US and the UK and traveling, which is going to be great. But I think we have to each find that space within ourselves that's right for us. And I think I was like I was buying into the dream that used to be my dream, but it wasn't the dream anymore, and that's why the self-awareness piece matters so much, because otherwise you can stay stuck for a while, and that's even if it's in a good place. So,
Mm-hmm.
Tango dancing in Buenos Aires, not bad. But, yeah, I think life is about moving forward and challenging yourself. And I just knew that I was ready for more. I was ready for the responsibility that comes with growing the business that I want. And it was time to take action.
So after tango dancing in Buenos Aires, what did you do?
So I went home, and it took me a month or two, like, cause I had this conclusion, but I was kind of like in a little bit of limbo, making sure, is this what I really want? And do I really want to move home? And so I got myself a place. And the reason why I decided to move home is because I needed a certain amount of certainty and support in my life, because, growing a business is challenging and scary, and you need support systems to some capacity, I think, for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to be taking bigger risks financially. So I think there was that. Moving home was the groundedness for me, and just getting a small space that I felt inspired in and that I could do my work in and grow in. And I just, got to work.
Yeah. Well, so, okay, I have two questions now.
Okay.
I'm thinking about what the listeners might want to hear. And part of it is those first, you talked about before your business kind of took off and allowed you to go and travel.
Sure.
You had, I think maybe, did you say it was 4 years that was kind of harder to start with?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 4.
So I'm curious about that. And then kind of what helped you get over that hump into the period where you could be nomadic and travel and support things. And then the last thing I want to know is when you came back, like what did you do to then expand and grow your business? So start anywhere in there that you want.
Okay. So the change that happened was energetic. So what happened was, I was at a point where it was sink or swim. Like I was like, if something doesn't change.
Is this back in the beginning?
Yeah, in 2012.
Okay.
So 2012, I'm like, if something doesn't change, I'm going to have to get a job, because this is getting a bit ridiculous. Like my friends are buying homes and getting married, and I'm single at home with my parents. Like this isn't working out with debt. So no thanks.
Was this during the network marketing time, or were you running your own business?
It was both, because in the network marketing, so you got to remember, I started a business and I had MBA school debt. So I had no money. I had negative money. Then I started a network marketing business, which did not work in my favor. Okay. And then I started consulting. But consulting was I was getting by, but I wasn't like thriving. I wasn't paying debt down. I wasn't, so so what happened was, I think it was like necessity. They say like sometimes people make major change when like they're either in deep pain or in like very highly inspired. And I think I was in deep pain, and I was just like, it's sink or swim. And so I made the decision. I had a life coach as a client at that time, and I loved working with her. I liked her work. And more than anything, I liked that I was going to help more people because of the work we were doing. Like I was going to indirectly help people through her. And that's when I realized, in helping her, she was a pivotal client for me, because working with her made me realize what I knew. Like, meaning it gave me the confidence to be like, damn, like I do know this stuff. Why have I been thinking, I don't know, or you know what I mean? Like, and so it was sort of the springboard, and it was a decision. And then all of a sudden, when I decided to go into coaching coaches, and I had the model, and I'm like, I'm going to take people through this, this, and this, and it's going to work, and they're going to get here, here, and here. And I swear to God, like all of a sudden the universe was like, way to go. And I got clients just like so easily. And that's why it is an energetic thing. I'd go to a networking event and I get a client, and I started marketing better, but because I was showing up differently and in a more confidence and more certain, and I was very niched, I was very focused. Doing that consistently is what got me over the hump, and it was just fast.
So prior to that, were you doing the social media consulting and stuff for like local businesses or for?
Yeah, more local businesses and like any type of business, you know. I have a real estate agent, a life insurance person, like a this or that, you know, like, yeah. And while the people I were attracting were lovely, you know, I don't have an interest in real estate. I don't have an interest in insurance and those are important services and important businesses for sure. It's just that my passion wasn't there. But when I was working with this life coach, of course, all the stuff from when I had my first aha moment with Tony Robbins, like, you know, I'm like, this is the shit. Like, yeah. I love this stuff. And I've never changed. And you know, what's interesting, Jen, is my friends have told me before, my friends who've known me since I was a kid, and they're like, you know, you've always been this way. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't think so. But I remember now as a kid in junior high school, having posters on my wall, and I used to hand make posters too. And when I was in junior high and high school, I played volleyball, and I was very good at it. So I'd have volleyball posters in there and stuff. And I remember like I'd make these motivational posters and like with these, you know, quotes and all this stuff. And I'm like, right, I really have been like this my whole life. It's not a surprise that I've ended up where I've ended up. I sort of forgot it. You know what I mean?
Mm. And one of the interesting things with the coaching coaches thing, you know, I sometimes have seen in some of these entrepreneurial spaces online where you and I both interact with people sometimes, you know, people complaining about people make like when people give services to coaches or coaches coach other coaches, but it sounds like it's much more of actually finding your people, not that it's just coaches coaching coaches.
Yeah. I mean, it was so natural.
Yeah. And I have seen some people who do, you know, I had Shelly, I'm trying to think, remember how to say her name. It's an oddly spelled name, Avanescu, I think.
Okay.
And she was a health coach, but the way she built her business and branded it and did all the stuff, a bunch of other health coaches that she knew started asking her how she did it. And she did end up going into coaching other health coaches, mainly because that was who she was getting the attention from. And she had done something they all wanted to do, which was to have this very professional appearance and be able to reach people and, you know, have all of the outreach and publicity that she did. Right. It sounds like kind of a similar thing. Like for you, energetically, you meshed with the life coach kind of in the way that she was already in the same language and world of the health coach.
Correct. And what's funny is I attract a ton of health coaches. It is bananas. Like, but I love it because people need to be healthy. I mean, I love all spectrum of coaching. I just think that this industry is so powerful. And it's like, you know, what's interesting at the time of the recording of this, the election just happened in the US. Mm-hmm. And, you know, no matter who you voted for, if you are a US citizen, you know, I think the reactions from around the world go to show that a lot of people need coaching. Like people need help. And it's help in like helping people understand emotional mastery, you know, and so helping people understand, you know, no matter who a leader of a country is, you are still in control of yourself at the base of who you are and what you attract into your life. And you choose who you are every single day in the words and the actions that you put out into the world. And there's just so much around it. And I think no matter what kind of coaching there is, whether you're doing relationship coaching or health coaching or business coaching or life coaching or whatever, when you get help in one area of your life, it spills out into the other. And I think more than anything, what coaching does for people is it gives them that awareness that allows them to realize they are in control and they always have choice. And that while pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. right?
That's a nice way to put it, yeah. And I'm just going to let the listeners know today is Thursday. It is November 10th, so it's 2 days after the election. I actually recorded another podcast episode yesterday, and it was so fresh and new that we couldn't help talking about it. We ended up calling it the things you can control and the things you can't control. So and we were talking about very similar things just because, I try to not make the episodes too time related just because this probably won't come out for a couple of weeks, but sometimes you just can't help it. Sometimes things happen and we just have to talk about them. And I'm still kind of processing it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. But it's a great opportunity. So what? It's almost like in that moment when I was in Buenos Aires and I'm like, okay, Jennifer, you're not happy. What are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. Are you going to sulk and just like ruin your time in Buenos Aires and then go home and be depressed about it? Or are you going to live up the time you have here and then go home and get to work and make change? Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah. There was a shock at first, but then,
of course.
But then I couldn't help thinking for women, obviously, because I call myself a financial feminist and I'm very interested in what women do. The fact that we had our first female candidate was really exciting, and all of the energy around that, the Pantsuit Nation stuff. And, it wasn't a pretty campaign. It was pretty nasty. I kept thinking, God, I can't wait till this is over. This is just it's hard to watch on television, all the debates and the commercials. And I really disliked this election cycle, possibly more than any other I've ever experienced. But at the same time, it was so exciting to have a woman come so close. Regardless what you think of Hillary in particular or any particular thing she has or has not done, that was historic. And we came so close. And what she went through, the scrutiny, all the work she did, is going to make it easier for the next woman who follows in her footsteps. And I'm excited about that. My daughter, it was hard because in the morning when I told my 7-year-old, we've been talking about the night before, at school, they vote at her school, which is weird because it wasn't my precinct. I had to go to church. But anyways, so they did mock voting and they talked a lot about the voting process and what it means to be president, what our president does, all those kinds of things. So when she woke up, she was all excited thinking that we had a woman president for the first time ever. And when I told her that we didn't, she got really upset. To her, she watched the debates with us, so she called Trump the mean man who was yelling at the nice lady. It's the 7-year-old equivalent of, hearing some of the things that he was saying, and she was very upset. So I was trying to explain to her that we've still made so much progress, and it's still really exciting, missed it by a smidge, and we just need to rally and try it again next time.
Well, Jen, I got to tell you, I said to a client this morning, I said, or yesterday, I said, this election, if there's anything someone can learn from it, it was such a good example of the law of attraction in action. Because I did a Facebook Live on this, and if you think about, so what does the law of attraction state? The law of attraction states what you put out is what you get back, and what you focus on expands. And so if you focus on what you want, you'll get it. If you focus on what you don't want, you will get what you don't want. So what's interesting is Trump supporters were for Trump and Hillary supporters were against Trump.
A lot of them were. An unfortunate number.
Yeah. So a large amount of the media and the people were like, Trump, 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 either for or against.
Yeah.
The momentum he created. And so from a specific, not talking about issues, not talking about any of it, but if you watch from just an energetic standpoint, he gained so much momentum. And this is why they say war does not create peace, because it doesn't. War creates war. And so much was pushing against. When you push against something, this is what happens to entrepreneurs, right? They're like, I need more money. I need more money. I need more money. You're in constant lack. And so they never get more money because because every subject is 2 subjects, the having of it or the not having of it. And most people want something from the not having it. And this is, I feel like from a super basic standpoint, like I know elections are more complicated than that, but from super basic, you just look at law of attraction. I'm like, of course he won. He was the only name you ever hardly heard, at least up here. It's like, oh my God.
I think that is a good point. And I think that him coming from his reality TV show background and the, it is so hard though. Like my husband, he's British, and he did not live here during the Clinton years when Bill
Right.
was in office and when Hillary was a first lady. I was in college then. My first election ever, I voted for Nader, and I've been scarred by it ever since because I did feel like my desire for another choice, for a third party, for someone outside of, this binary system that we have, effectively put George W. Bush in. I mean, not me alone, but everyone who voted for. It's kind of the same thing with the third parties this time. And I know that I had friends who posted on Facebook that they wrote in Bernie, and I was like, that did no good at all. There's no way Bernie could be in. He's not the candidate. And the third party candidates, we all knew they couldn't win, but they got enough votes that it probably pulled some of those votes away. If those votes had gone to Hillary, if those were people who didn't want Trump. But again, you're right. We're focusing on the not Trump rather than the Hillary. And my deepest desire for a woman breaking that biggest glass ceiling, that highest glass ceiling in the nation, the glass ceiling of the White House, I wanted us all to be so behind her. I wanted it to feel like Obama, which was, oh my gosh, there's an African-American man who actually has a chance at the White House. Like, I remember that feeling. And I don't know, I mean, there was a lot of baggage with Hillary because of Bill and all these different things, but I couldn't get that feeling in this election. And I wish that I could have, because I think that would have made a difference if we were all like, a woman in the White House is amazing. Yep. But instead, you're right, it ended up being a not Trump.
And well, what's interesting is now, again, so I'm Canadian, so I'm watching it from a different perspective than you in the country. Mm-hmm. But we, of course, get a lot of American media. Yeah. And of course, my social media has a ton of Americans in it. Yeah. To note, I love my American friends. Like, and I was in California last month. It was rocking, like, good stuff, people, good stuff. But like it was either against Trump, for Trump, or like I did see some I'm with her stuff, mm-hmm. but the most of it was the push against, and then some people were like, the lesser of two evils, I guess I'll vote for her. But you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, it's a disaster. Like, I just, yeah. And I imagine what it was like to be in America at that time. Like, oh.
And I wish it would have been possible for the Hillary campaign. Like, I kept going back and trying to find those badass Hillary memes. When she was Secretary of State and she had her BlackBerry and her sunglasses on, and she'd be like, don't worry, I got that. Obama's like worried about something. She's like, don't worry, I got it. Yeah. Her popularity as Secretary of State was much higher than as a candidate for presidency, which I do think says a lot about the public's feel about ambitious women. When she had the Secretary of State position, it was fine. Like when she was running against Obama, her popularity dipped. When she was Secretary of State, it spiked. Like she had the position. She wasn't running for anything. It wasn't a question of ambition. It was just a question of her skills, which she did a lot of good. I mean, if you look across secretaries of state over the years, she accomplished a lot during her time. Right. But yeah, I'm not, I know we're going off on a tangent a little bit, but I do think women, ambition, money, making those decisions like you in Buenos Aires, I think a lot of times women have a hard time doing this. You being in Buenos Aires and being like, I'm not happy. Women in the feminine mystique being like, I have a home and a husband and I'm not happy. I have this education that's being unused, or there's somewhere else I need to go. I'm not satisfied here. And I feel like throughout history, a lot of times women have been told, no, like that's not right. You have everything. You have your house and your vacuum and your floor polisher. You should be satisfied. You have your business that supports you. You should be satisfied. You get to travel. You should be satisfied. You are Secretary of State. You should be satisfied. But the truth is women do need to push past that and run for president and grow their businesses and further their education. Work if they don't want to be in the home. Be in the home if they want to be in the home. If they want to leave work and be in the home. But, you need having that ability to be dissatisfied and go for more. Because I think you're right. Sitting on the fifth step is not happiness.
It's not. And You know, and for me, it wasn't even about more money or anything. I just felt like I am capable of so much more than this. And I needed a break. I needed time. Like the first year that I was there, I needed that. That was very good. And maybe actually part of the second time. But I think what happened was by the time I got to Buenos Aires, I was done. I didn't need any more. Like, you know, like I'm all better now. It's time to move on. And that's it. It's following the call. You have to follow the call. It's the same reason I didn't leave entrepreneurship even when it was really difficult, because it was like, I just feel like, I mean, I don't know if you'll ever talk to an entrepreneur who didn't want to quit like 10,000 million times. But I don't know about you, Jen, but like, I've definitely had my moments where I'm like, oh, but then I'm like, I can't, what would I do? I'll go work for someone else. That's just not going to work. Like, this is it. And I remember thinking like, if I quit now, I'm just like, I'll be one of those people who was like 2 feet from the goal, you know? And, it just kept me there. It kept me going. It kept me moving forward even through those difficult times. And I think, you know, yeah, you're right. We as women have to, and it's only the glass ceiling we have in our head. It may have come from society or a parent or someone else, but at the end of the day, sure, even if you look at Trump, he decided, what another great example, like everyone's like, you're the most unqualified candidate on the planet. And everyone thinks you're a racist and a this and a that and a whatever. But he was like, I'm president, and look at him. Yeah. I mean, if the one good thing that came out of this campaign is to show you law of attraction works like nobody's business. And when you put your mind to something and you are as passionate and as focused as he is.
Some might say foolhardy, but it worked for him, I guess.
Well, the thing is, and this is what I learned from one of my mentors, like that the law of attraction is kind of like the law of gravity. So, you know, if I take my phone and put it up here and drop it, law of gravity doesn't be like, Jennifer, that's stupid. You might break your $1,000 phone. Don't drop it. You're just going to drop it because that's what gravity does to it. Mm-hmm. Right? So law of attraction, energy, like creates like, it doesn't negate, ooh, that's bad for you. You shouldn't do that. It's just like, oh, you want more of this? Oh, here's more, here's more, here's more, here's more, here's more. And until you take the power into your own hands and decide, shit, I don't want this anymore. And you make that energetic shift so that the universe can start bringing you something else, you know, it's just doing its job.
You know, and I was just thinking, in case any listeners or viewers aren't familiar with the law of attraction, what resource would you recommend for them? Like The Secret or?
No, okay. The Secret left out something really important.
Okay. I tried at one point to watch that video and actually didn't make it through, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe in its time, it was like a nice breakthrough for it to get a little more popular. Mm-hmm. Abraham Hicks, they are my favorite. To me, they are the best teachers on the planet today of law of attraction. And, you know, to start with, I think they have a book called Ask, and it is given. They have many books, actually, all New York Times bestsellers. But, you know, and they have tons of audios and videos. But they are my absolute favorite resource on this topic.
Okay, so we'll put a link to something from them, to their website. That's a good idea. We'll put a link to their website, just in case anyone's not familiar with that.
Yes.
I don't think you're the first person to have talked about it on here, but it's a little on the woo-woo side of things we're not a straight up money show, and we have talked to people about manifesting and things, but
yes. But here's the thing, to those who think it's woo-woo, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Is it not true that when you look at people and you look at kids in school, do complainers not hang out with complainers? And happy people hang out with happy people? And the jocks hang out with the jocks? And the smokers hang out with the smokers. Like that's what it was like in high school for us, right?
Yeah,
And the music people hang out with the music people, because like attracts like. Like if you start watching your life and you start really looking at your results, and like people think, like, why does this person treat me the way in a way that I don't want to? How are you treating them? How do you feel about them? Because I guarantee you, if you are sending them love and kindness and you treat them with utmost respect and they still treat you bad, then either you're not treating them as you think you are, right? Or like, actually at the end of the day, that's it. Because if you were, either their behavior would shift, or they would sort of move out of your life. Like even if they were living with you, you wouldn't come home at the same time. You'd have different schedules. Like you just miss each other a lot. Like, so I just challenge anyone who thinks that this is bullshit to like, watch your life. Watch your life.
Well, and I do definitely believe in the power of our minds to point our attention at things. Like there's that exercise, like say the word red and suddenly you notice every red thing. Or if you really want a beamer, all of a sudden all you see are beamer. You see beamers every day when you drive somewhere. So I definitely believe that what we're paying attention to, it kind of like expands in our life, and we see it. That's why I feel like just talking to women about money, even if, like I've had the same thing you were talking about with sometimes you tell them things and then you ask them how it's going and they haven't done any of those things. But I also feel like putting their attention on like, okay, so what are we spending our money on? And where is this all going? And what is the flow? And is it going towards the things that you say you actually value? They start paying more attention. And as time goes on, things can shift without the massive actions that feel too hard to do sometimes. So I'm not against any of these things. I just don't always... It's not where I come from straight up,
Right.
but I'm very aware of it. Like, I'm in Denise Duffield Thomas's group. And even that, I was like because she talks about manifesting things a lot, which when I first heard of that, I'm like, oh, what? I'm going to like use the power of my brain to make money appear in my bank account. Is that what we're talking about? But like her whole thing, even though that's the word she uses, if you go through the steps in her little boot camp, and I shouldn't call it little, it's a pretty neat boot camp. One is tracking your money and knowing exactly where it comes from and how much.
Sure.
And that's something that I do with everyone. And if you track it, you know a lot more about it. And then, another one's being grateful, and another one's finding all the little hidden bits of money in your life. All the times you like stick a gift card in your purse and never use it. All the time you have rewards points and you don't use it. Like looking at all the ways you are abundant and wealthy in your life. And I actually love that group and that program.
And those practices are to help shift your energy, which helps shifts what you put out, so you get more of it back.
Yeah,
that's why those exercises work.
Yeah. So we'll put links to Denise too, in case anyone's interested in that. Are you in that? I can't remember if you're in that.
No, I'm not. But I actually I do have a video series on abundance and attracting abundance into your business, because it's a big one for a lot of people. And I think hands down, money creates this, like, as you probably know, in people, right? They have this, and I know, I had it too. And I think as you're moving up the scale in your business, getting comfortable with more money is something you're always working on, and seeing the extra zero and feeling worthy of what you're asking for and all that stuff. And it's all head game.
That's a big one for women too. That's something that we talk about in that group and in my groups a lot too, is just culturally, society has always kind of commodified women and objectified women in different ways. And I do think that we grow up not really feeling insecure about not just what we are worth as human beings, but like what our work is worth, what our time is worth. The fact that our time having babies is considered time off, and like as if we're having a vacation, right? When frankly, I think it's 64 women per day die in childbirth if you go to the World Health Organization. I looked it up once because I was like, this whole idea that like, oh, she's going to go have maternity leave. Like maternity leave, she's, it's as if this is something that I think it's more the equivalent of if a man had a watermelon-sized tumor in their abdomen that has to be removed. Like, you wouldn't expect them back at work 12 days
weeks later. Yeah. Totally.
Like, you expect recovery time, and not to mention, there's this new infant that now needs
attention.
Right. Needs a little bit of feeding now and then. But yeah, so just like women's work has always been thought of differently, women's time. And, so much of our work historically has been outside of the workforce, outside of paid labor. It's been agriculture. It's been sometimes sex labor. It's been slave labor. It's been all these things that I think make it harder for us to value ourselves in the way that men can historically and collectively, like men's work in, money and the real professions had always been men. And that's changing over time, just like the presidency. But yes. But I still think there are these lingering feelings culturally and historically around women, just that it's hard for us to charge enough. And I think when we have these places where we can talk about it, people can be like, you are amazing. You are yes. So much more. Oh my gosh, you should be charging them twice that. Because some of the groups I'm in, we do actually talk dollars and cents, like, oh my gosh, someone just offered me this thing and this is the offer that they're making. Should I counter it? Should I ask for more? And then we'll talk about it. And especially the best thing is when there's someone in there who's had experience at that exact same level of business where this person is, to say, especially if it's something like a book proposal or a speaking engagement and you don't know how much to ask for, having someone else tell you that your stuff. You are so ready to ask for more. You should definitely be asking for more. A man would ask for more, because that helps us with the wage gap and all of these.
It does. But what's interesting? I have male clients too, and they struggle with this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not solely a gender issue, but
it's not a gender issue. It is a word.
Women do get paid less. We do get paid less overall.
Well, we do. And I would say that one of the reasons is exactly what you've just talked about. It's women getting used to being professionals over a consistent period of time and being paid improperly. But the money issues tend to come down to worthiness, and worthiness is a human issue, not a female issue. Mm-hmm. Men deal with this just as much as women do. So, from my experience, I've, and to be on your point, I think every client I've ever had, I'm like, double your prices now. They're too low. Even today, I had a client of mine who is servicing a more upscale market, even more than she makes in the work she's doing. And I said to her, your pricing is too cheap for your ideal client. And if you do not, you need to remember that you're not your ideal client. Your ideal client is someone with higher disposable income at this point in time. She's newer in her business. So, and I said, you will be your ideal client in soon enough time. You got to start charging properly. Is one of them. Mm-hmm. But it's the,
well, and for some things, if you charge too little, people won't want it. You know?
100%.
Like people who are used to buying design premium, something that's too cheap, they'll think, oh, that's not for me. I want.
Exactly. And when it comes to professional services, this is the thing. Like if you don't price yourself accordingly, like if I'm going to go shopping for a business coach, I know what I charge. My business coach better charge more than me, or what am I going to hire her or him for? Like, right. So it's pricing is the worthiness issue is a human issue.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably a good place to start wrapping it up, because I think I've actually lost track of exactly what time we started. Well, I used to record in Skype with Ecamm, and it would give me a countdown. It would give me a little timer over there, which now that I use Zoom more often, I don't have it. But I think we're probably at least at the half-hour mark, if not more. So it has been so great talking to you, Jennifer. And if people are interested in the kind of work that you've described doing, where can they find you and how can they work with you?
My website at Trask.com.
Okay, great. We'll put a link to that. And you do both one-on-one work, and do you do group work as well? Or
I do. Funny enough, I'm in the midst at the recording of this of launching Manifest Your Awesomeness, which is a brand new course that I have coming out. And I do have some products, and I do one-on-one, which I love.
Okay, great. Well, we will definitely put links and point people in that direction. So if you have enjoyed Jennifer's story and hearing about what she does, you'll be able to click those links in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here with us.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.